Awesome. Well, thanks, John, for joining us from Siren. Super excited to talk with you today, learn more about Siren, and also hear about the exciting projects that you're working on, John. Maybe we can talk a little bit about crypto compliance ABCs and maybe some compliance challenges as well. So, John, would you share a little bit about Siren, a project that's maybe exciting you, or compliance challenge that's top of mind for you all?
Yeah, so what Siren does is we're an investigation platform, and we bring lots of data from the outside world. We work with over 200 data vendor partners, and we link that to internal data sets that organizations have. So it could be law enforcement, national security and defense are our biggest organizations.
Wow.
Biggest markets we work in right now. We have a rapidly growing commercial market as well, in the banking sector, the commercial sector, who are also interested in insights. It's around threats they're dealing with. It can be things like counterterrorism, terrorism financing, human trafficking, counter narcotics, things of that nature. So for us, the crypto side of things, it always comes down to following the money, the money trail of people that are dealing in nefarious activities people want to get to the back of. And what we see now more and more in the commercial world is people are trying to manage their own risk. They're trying to manage, is this transaction, is my counterparty who they say they are? Do we need to dive a little bit deeper? What about my compliance around sanctions and sanctions evasion? Because financial institutions realize the risk they're running by dealing with not the right people.
Absolutely. And you said over 200 data providers you
Correct.
work with?
Yeah.
So you pretty much are taking a huge issue, which is aggregation, and making it simple in your platform
That's
as
the
well.
idea.
And is your dream use case, is it more on the public sector side, private sector side, or kind of a combination of both?
I think it's a combination of both, and it's really about data sharing and sharing of knowledge and intelligence across them, because when you deal with such a large data set, it's across all domains. So it's obviously crypto, but it's also open source intelligence, it's social media, it's company data, it's dark web, it is even geospatial. Now we're doing
the
a lot
ears
of
perked up for all the counter North Korea people there on geospatial data.
That's right. And look, we're doing a lot of work now around cable protection, around maritime awareness, around, when you've got suspicious vessels, who really owns that?
Absolutely.
And then all of a sudden you're into the crypto world again. So your gateway into it is really, it could be non-obvious relationships. It could be things because people don't have access to the data. Typically, they might not be able to see who's really the bad actors they're dealing with. So what we try to do is three things for the analysts. One is help them search better. Two, help them connect once they've found particular entities they're interested in. And three, how do you generate a report from that? How do you generate intelligence? And once you do that, then you can start sharing intelligence. Then people can start sharing knowledge, and all this seas of data actually starts making sense.
Yeah. I think what's so cool here is that you bring both the TradFi world, OSINT, and crypto into the same platform. And as someone who was a previous implementer for the government on crypto and compliance, a big issue that I saw was that there weren't easy solutions to covering all of those different areas. I mean, you've talked about maritime to kind of law enforcement use cases, and then of course we're here at Chainalysis Links talking about crypto. And I think what people miss out on, and this is a call out to the crypto community, is you can't just be focused on crypto risk. You have to be focused on how crypto intersects with all of those different areas when it comes to illicit crime, finance, risk exposure. That's very cool.
Yeah, and look, for us, we think of the world as, you can't limit yourself in terms of what type of data you're looking at, because data is just a reflection of a situation
Absolutely.
of events taking place. It could be historical events, it could be things that might happen in the future, it could be what's happening right now. But so you can't limit yourself. So we took a very, very broad view early days in Siren to say whatever the data is, wherever it is, whether it's digital forensics, whether it's phone messages, emails, structured, unstructured data, how does that tell the story, and how does that link into the crypto world? Because a lot of people are. When you look at it just as a crypto problem, you may miss out on all the other signals.
So many other signals
that are coming from everywhere else.
Yep.
Like last week, I was talking to a satellite company, and how they process data within the satellite and send metadata to us. So we're now working with a satellite provider.
Wow.
So you never know where that signal is coming from, but you need to be prepared to make that part of the story that the data is telling you.
And you're providing an all-in-one kind of solution here to a big compliance gap issue across the space, not only crypto. And from my side, I want to ask you, so having worked with crypto exchanges, compliance officers from central banks, many others, a common problem that I've seen is that, one, they don't have the resources or capacity to have a dedicated staff member solely to those issues.
Yeah.
So what would you say to a regulator, private company that's, they need this solution, but they don't necessarily have the full time? Is it easy to use the platform? Is it easy to learn and you can user-friendly, I guess?
Well, the way I look at it is it's expensive not to use it. Because
that's a good point.
The way we think of our customers typically have about 16 tools they're dealing with, right?
Oh, yeah.
So if you think of the onboarding time for a typical analyst in law enforcement or in compliance in the US is between 6 and 18 months. Why? Because they have so many technologies to learn. And then by the time they've learned them, they have to go back and learn them again because their training course was such a long time ago. So,
and not to mention, if you get so overwhelmed at your job, you may not love it there. And
exactly.
You may see some,
it's a huge point you make. Retention is massive, because if you've got a plethora of tools, you're not really getting to the source of the problem. You're not doing the job you thought you were joining to do, but you spend your time doing data integration, doing data mapping, you're in the spreadsheets, you're in PowerPoint,
and not able to address the actual problem that you were hired for and want to get to the bottom of.
Exactly. So if you can train on one tool, search on one platform, connect on one platform, build reports on one platform, it's just dramatically more efficient than learning 16 tools. And many of which are really, really old and legacy technologies. And something the analysts always talk to me about is what they call context switching. I'm moving from one environment to another, and I'm not sure how they relate to each other. And their integration typically takes place on a notepad or on Post-its, and it's very manual, and it's quite disheartening because they spend a fraction of their time really thinking their way through the problem, and most of their time trying to make these technologies work together that were never meant to work together.
Absolutely. Wow. I mean, I wish I had known about Siren a lot earlier than during this interview. So I want to ask you something that I love to share with people are crypto compliance terms, or ABCs, that I think that everyone should know when you're looking to get into crypto, or maybe you're in the space and you want to refresh. Do you have a certain term that you think people in crypto compliance should know or refresh on?
Yeah, I think the thing that's really important to our users is auditability. And what I mean by that is when you're running an investigation, when you're doing your investigation, can you replay what you did? Can you go back through the steps? Because it's very, very useful for a compliance person to see, how did you think your way through it? How did you get to a conclusion? If it's almost like thinking like what you present to a defense attorney, right? Because if the logic is impeccable, then the case itself has a very, very strong chance of going through, and therefore the kind of searches you do, the kind of investigations, the analytics you run, you should be able to play that back and get to the same answer as every time. Yeah.
And auditable key there. Definitely your sticky note across all of these 17 tools is not an audit trail sufficient.
You don't have it.
For sure.
You don't have it. No.
Well, last question for you. I want to ask you about, okay, at Siren, you have so many different data sources that are not always positive to work with. I think working in crypto crime can sometimes be a little bit dark in times, but you have such a positive energy, and I can really tell like your passion for this space. I wanted to ask you, like, how do you keep your positivity when there are so many issues and you see them in Siren?
Sure.
How do you keep your positivity in the crypto crime space?
Well, I think it's fundamentally if you're doing the right thing, if you've got a great mission, like we like to talk of our mission being keeping people, assets, and networks safe.
I love it. It's a good mission.
And once you have a very clear mission, then people, the kind of people you attract to the organization, don't mind seeing the bad side because they know it's there. But they know they know they're doing good, and they know that they're on the right side, and there's great satisfaction we get from our team when we come back with good news stories. When we talk about we've helped people on the human trafficking side, we've helped people find missing children, we've helped bring down narcotics smuggling rings, terrorism rings. So the kind of mission vibe that gives the team, the positive energy, is just amazing. People love it, and people see it as much more than a job then.
Absolutely. I am the same way. I think you'll never work a day in your life if you have a mission, because we are out to make a difference. So John, thank you so much for joining us from the Siren team. And okay, sidebar. We're not wrapping up.
Sure.
John, tell me a little bit about the Chainalysis conference. How are things going? Have you seen a session that stood out to you? Are you excited about any coming up for day 2?
Yeah, look, I love coming to Links. It's a great community that Chainalysis have built around it.
Amazing community.
You have the combination of the corporate world, the regulators, the law enforcement, national security, and it's not just a New York event, it's an international event as well.
And banks here as well, so shout out to some TradFi I've seen come by.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I really always appreciate the education and the update and the data that Chainalysis have on the market, where, when I saw Jonathan's opening talk about the amount of stablecoin, the amount of transaction volume, on crypto, the importance, this industry is just getting more and more important, not less so.
For sure.
So, and it's a great meeting point and melting pot of thought leaders. So, yeah, I really always enjoy.
And especially as companies grow so much, it's really cool to see those that stick to the mission, which we just talked about is so important to all of us in the crypto compliance space, and seeing that Chainalysis, do they have to give us the annual report? No. Do they have to put on these amazing conferences and bring together this entire community? No. But is it something that they know is valuable to the community, and they ultimately do it because
it's massively
we're all
valuable
here
to
for
the
the
community.
mission? Yes. And so I'm the same way. I love that we have the opportunity to learn and have really cool people like yourself join, and us all kind of get to be in this melting pot of communication, and maybe even be able to solve some of the barriers that we have online in person.
Yeah, no, it's super. Yeah, not all conferences should be online.
Yes, no, in person.
Way better.
In person, please.
Yeah.
How is your
Yeah. Yeah, look, I think data sharing is the biggest issue in law enforcement, national security compliance since 9/11. You know, there's so many agencies have been set up with the core mission of helping to share data. I think we're gone to another level now where the technology has caught up with the vision of sharing data. So now we're, you know, particularly from Siren, it's down to who's sharing data for what, and do you trust them, and can you have very fine-grained security around that, right? And then it's why, you know, there's a big difference between sharing, you know, fields in a database and sharing intelligence. Intelligence is massively different. Intelligence has interpretation of the data, interpretation of how all these things connect together and tell a story. And I think that's the level we're at now. And because we've caught up with the vision of what people wanted to do in the early days around data sharing, people are much more open to sharing. But look, we still have the you know, the human instinct to, you know, hoard data, keep data to ourselves. But there's a risk around large volumes of data leaving your facility. There's much less risk around intelligence, because you've really narrowed down on the thing that's important and that you want to share. You know, when you share large volumes of data, it's potentially risky. So people have to understand and appreciate the risk that people have in data sharing. But I think we're way further along on the conversation than we were, you know, back in 2001.
Follow-up question for you on that. So talking to data sharing, and I think you really hit the nail on the head there. There's a sentiment around the risk of data sharing. So even though we're trying to solve problems, what's your recommendation for maybe a company or even a government that is feeling that risk side of sharing information? What would you say to them as like a first step to open the door to facilitate collaboration?
Yeah, I think the most important thing isn't actually a technology thing at all. It's to understand who you're sharing it with. You know, build up that trust, build up that personal relationship. You know what the mission of the person that you're looking to share it with is. And some data sharing isn't down for your decision; it's compulsory, right?
Yeah, true.
So you're compelled to share, right? But other times it's collaboration, and collaboration starts with building good trust and relationships. And then after that, you know, good things can happen. And particularly once people understand the type of sharing, how you're sharing, and it, you know, trust actually builds through using good technology. So if people have very contemporary technology, a good way of building intelligence and sharing that, people start trusting it much easier than if it's raw, you know, incomplete, hard to understand. You know, then it's not worth sharing, because people will start ignoring it because it's just
information overload.
It's information overload.
I love it. So have you seen information sharing here at Chainalysis live? Do you think that's going on?
Absolutely. The conversations, the networking, you know, having the right people under one roof. You know, this is just a melting pot of information sharing. You know, put it this way: when people go back to their desk next week and they're talking to somebody about an experience they had at the event, and they're talking to the kind of vendors they spoke to, what Chainalysis are doing in your roadmap, that can just only help engender trust for good sharing.
Absolutely. Final question here. How do you think we keep that energy going? So post Chainalysis, how do we keep the energy going of information sharing and continuing the collaboration across different stakeholders from the industry? Any recommendations?
I think we all keep doing our jobs. We keep doing what we're doing. You know, we build up better technology, better communities, better ecosystems. You know, this is an ecosystem. It's not one vendor that can solve for everything. You know, so
respond to your LinkedIn messages if you see someone. Follow up with you after Chainalysis.
Exactly. So you know, we're big fans of social media. We're big fans of communicating this market. You know, we have to keep communicating as a community.
Love it. Amazing. Awesome work. Boom, boom, boom.
There we go.